Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'm taking a look at Battle of Gods by Ole Steines, published by Mood Publishing and Grimfrost. And this is a arena battler for 2 to 4 players, which plays in about half an hour for ages 10 and up. There's also 2 expansions which bring 2 extra figures, 2 extra gods to the arena. And before I explain how to play the game and share my thoughts, I'd like to ask you to please hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already. That really helps the channel. And also please check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below. Patreons of my channel got a whole bunch of cool perks. And with that out of the way, let's set up a game. To set up a game of Battle of Gods, you simply put the board in the middle of the table, keep the glory tokens, the dice nearby, and every player simply selects one of the 4 heroes in the core game, or perhaps the heroes from the 2 expansions. You take that hero's miniature and character board, and these character boards also have a health track here. So you take one of those red cubes and put that all the way on the left. That is to indicate your maximum health, and this will go down as you take damage. And you will also notice these special spots here. That is where you place 4 victory tokens at the start of the game, which I have already done for these 2 characters. You also take that hero's corresponding deck of cards. They're all color-coded and they all have their own icon on the back. You give that deck a shuffle and you keep it face down next to your character board. If your god has some kind of special power that uses a token, such as this token, which Thor has, this Mjolnir, and Rocken has this Wolves token right here, you just take that as well. Surtur over there has the Burning Ground tile. Hel has the Pit of Despair tile. Odin has a couple of Raven tiles. And Freya doesn't have any tokens. Then you decide who gets to go first, and that player places their miniature anywhere on the board. Unless you're playing a 2 or 3 player game, then you only use the center part of the map. You don't use these parts with this icon on it. But in a 4 or more player game, you can also use those tiles. So just simply in clockwise order, starting with the starting player, you simply put your characters anywhere on the board. And that's the whole setup. Let's explain the rules. So the goal of Battle of Gods is, of course, to be the last god standing, or by winning by getting 10 victory points. And victory points, or glory points as they are called, are represented by these round tokens here, and you start with 4 of them already on your board. But as you take damage, your cube might pass one of these, and when it happens, when you are on such a spot, the token is removed and given to the player dealing that damage. So you will lose it and you won't get it back even if you heal afterwards. And of course, a player is defeated when their health cube reaches the final spot over here. That player's miniature is then removed from the board, and any tokens they had that might have still been on the board are also removed. A turn has several phases, and the first optional thing you can do on your turn is your initial move. You have 1 free movement point, which simply means you can move 1 spot in any direction adjacent to the spot you were in. Unless, of course, it's occupied by another player. You can't move in their spot or push them away or something. And there are several spots on the map that have a different ability. This is a portal tile, which links to this one. So very simply put, if you step on this, you immediately teleport to this spot. So that doesn't take an extra movement. You just move from one spot onto the portal and you instantly teleport to the other portal. Unless, again, that spot was occupied. If I move here, then I'll simply stay on this spot. The purple one is the cider pool. If I am next to the cider pool and I use my movement to move onto it, then I get to roll the black die. So I take this die, give it a roll, and I gain what it says. Now, this die and bring that close, has several very positive things here. Here you heal 2 health points. This will let you draw a card. This is the card symbol. This gets you a full victory point. You simply take one of those glory tokens. And this will give you a card and a health point. And this again is another card. So there's 2 of those faces. And there's also one that is hazardous, and that's you lose 2 hit points. So there is a risk to stepping onto the cider pool over there, but it's 1 in 6, so that's pretty good. So after you have optionally taken that initial single movement, you get to boost with a card if you have any cards in your hand. Now you start out with all of your cards still in the deck, so you don't have any cards on your hand. But during the game, whenever you either, reroll this die result, or you trigger an ability that has that symbol on it, anytime you see this symbol, that basically means you gain a card. And when you gain a card, you simply take the top one from your deck and put it face down in front of you. You don't take it onto your hand yet. You just have to put it in front of you, and you will get that into your hand at the end of your turn. So you can't use it right away, but you can use it on your next turn. Now, if you already have a card, so let's say, for example, we have this card right here. You can see there's a text on it, but there's also some symbols on it. Now, if I want to boost with a card, and this is also optional, I simply slide this card underneath my player board on the side here, where it lines up with these top 3 skills. The bottom one doesn't have a slot here, so I slot it in like this. And now these skills will have an extra effect. And this is permanent. This will stay underneath your character board for the entire game. But that is also optional. And you can only play 1 of these cards per turn under your dashboard to boost your abilities. So if I have multiple cards, I'll have to wait until the next turn, and then I can boost again. If I want to use the card for its special ability, though, it's just used and then discarded. You simply apply the effect, and then the card goes away. And the cards will tell you when you can use them. So this could be at different times during a turn, either your turn or an opponent's turn. So read what they do and then decide what you want to do with them. The third thing you're gonna do on your turn, and this is something you always do, is roll the dice. So you take these white dice, and these are called the power dice. Simply take all of them and you roll them. And this works like Yahtzee. You get to roll them 2 times more, and you get to keep what you want to keep. And they match, of course, these symbols on your character board. So if you want to do this skill, you'll need to roll these symbols. So let's see what we have. For example, we have this fist here, which I can put here. And we have this symbol, which is called gezelschapsspel, which is a hard name to remember. I'll just call it Aegis. And if I roll another one, I can activate this skill. Now, in this case, this has an arrow symbol with a burst. This is a fist with a burst. A fist with a burst basically means you can deal 1 damage to a character that's adjacent to where you are. The arrow means that it is ranged. If there is no R next to these symbols, then the range is unlimited. Here it says R2, which means the range for this attack, and it's 3 damage, is 2 squares. So this is Thor. If Thor was over here, for example, and I activated this skill, say I rolled another one of these, and I choose to activate this with my dice, I could do 3 damage, range damage, for a range of 2 to another character. So that means I could either attack this character or this character for 3 damage. Damage is always dealt to a single champion unless stated otherwise. But I hadn't rolled this yet, and I haven't really committed anything. You can put them on here, but you can always take them away and re-roll them again, as long as you only roll 3 times in total maximum. So let's re-roll these dice. Now, on the other hand, I could also choose to simply get a victory point, because this symbol right here is half a glory token. So if I roll 2 of these, and I rolled 3 in this case, I can simply put 2 of these aside and exchange that result for a glory token. So instead of committing my dice to my skills, I can always choose to just use the result that's on the dice. Now, all the hero boards also have a fourth skill, kind of like their ultimate skill, where you have to put 4 dice results that are all the same. So here it says any die result equals equals equals. So that simply means 4 of the same results. So now I've already rolled 3 of these, so I could say I'm going to try and roll this, and maybe I want to take these dice, or maybe I just want to try my luck with this one. This would be my second roll, and here, well, there you go, very lucky there. I rolled another one of these, and I could put that here, and that would mean I would activate this skill. Now, of course, I couldn't trigger this anymore because this needs an additional die, and I could just either use the results from this. I probably would have rolled these anyway, but now if I manage to pull this off, I get 1 damage, and this is a melee damage. That's what the fist means, per victory point that I have. So if I have, at this point, I've got 6 of these glory points, 4 are still on my health track, and 2 I gained in previous turns perhaps, then I would do 6 melee damage to a character that was adjacent to me. Now, of course, the start of the game here, I still am far away from other champions, so this wouldn't really have helped me. So this was probably not something I would do right now. But if you are close to a character and you can get there, and maybe you have rolled some extra movement, if you were 2 spaces away and you had a movement die, you could also just use that result to move. Of course, if I moved here, I would instantly teleport over there. So this would have been a better position. That means I could move here and then do this. So positioning is very important as well in this game. So right now it wouldn't be in my best interest to actually go for this result. And every hero does have a different result. They have all different skills for all of their die results. And the die results are different as well. And sometimes a hero will have skills that need 3. And sometimes a hero will have skills that only need 2 die results. So it's a very asymmetrical type of game. So let's just say my second roll was trying to get one of those Aegis symbols again. So this was my second roll. Look at this. I get another one. I get a third one even. And I get half a card and a punch. So let's check out all of these results here. So this is simply 1 melee damage to an adjacent character if I choose to use the die result instead of using it for an ability. We have a heart, which of course heals you 1 point. This is 1 movement. This is half a victory point. This is the Aegis, which is only used on hero boards. And finally, we have another half a card. No, that is a half a card. If you have 2 of these, you can draw a card. Not taken into your hand yet, just place it in front of you. Right. So had I rolled this result, I could actually activate another skill here. I just noticed. So this is 2 of these Aegis results and half a card right there. So I could do both of these things. And I can do them in any order I want. Now for this one, this has a range of 2, so I would need to be close to another hero. So once again, even with the free movement that I could have taken at the start of my turn, I could move here or here or here. So let's say I moved here. I'm still 1, 2, 3 spots away from this hero. And if I moved here, same thing, 1, 2, 3 from that one. So this would actually not help me as well. And you can always try to roll for movement, of course. But let's just say if I was over here, then this skill would let me deal 3 damage with a range of 2 to this character in this case. And they would move their token to the right. So once again, 1, 2, 3 damage. And I take that victory point here, this glory token, and I move them off to indicate that I've already taken that action. And then for this action, I can take a card. So I take that card, put it in front of myself, and I take another glory point from the general supply. It's going fast. And another card, because I boosted that in an earlier turn. So those are all my dice used, and that is basically the end of your turn. You check whether you have 10 victory points, or if you're the last champion standing, you've defeated all the other ones. If that is not the case, you give the dice to the next player, and you take the cards that you unlocked into your hand, and you can simply keep them and read them. Now, I have mentioned that you can only play one card on your dashboard per turn if you choose to boost with a card, but if you choose to use your cards for their effect, you can use as many cards as you want, as are able to be used, of course, according to what's actually written on the card during your turn or somebody else's turn. But you can use any number of effects from cards that are in your hand. Now, Battle of Gods can also be played in team mode, in a 2 versus 2 team. And then, of course, the players sit opposite from each other at the table. So the players to your left and right will always be players of the opposing team. And you can use any healing results, either on the dice or cards or whatever effect, to heal other players, so your teammate, instead of yourself, no matter where they are on the game board. You can, however, not heal any teammates with healing from the faith die, so this double heart or the heart and the card effect, or through champion abilities unless stated otherwise. Figures always block movement, so you cannot move through your teammate either, but your teammate does not block your line of sight. You can also not damage your teammate with effects of individual dice, but you can damage them with a champion ability that covers multiple spaces, such as this burning ground token that Surtur has. This is simply placed anywhere on the board adjacent to where Surtur is. So it could be like this, or even like this, but I could also choose to do it like this. And then this character, Freya here, would be on the burning ground. So if these two were teamed up, then they would still deal damage to their teammate. And should your teammate lose a glory token due to one of your effects, then you don't gain that glory token and is returned to the general supply. And as soon as one team member reaches 10 or more glory points, that whole team wins the game. And you can also win immediately by slaying both the opponents. And of course, you cannot give glory points to your team member. And if your team member is taken out by defeating them, then any glory points that they might have gained are also returned to the general supply. With the 2 expansions, you could also expand the game to a 3 versus 3 or a 3 teams of 2 game, and then you simply take seats alternating team members. And those are all the rules. The rule book has a handy reference on the back that has all the dice faces for the power dice and the faith die, and all the tokens and special abilities that characters may have. Even has a turn summary here, and that's basically all you need to know. So that's a very handy reference. And that's it. So let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on Battle of Gods by Mood Publishing. Let's start with the components. Now, if you've already seen my unboxing of the game, you've seen that the components are pretty awesome. If you haven't seen the unboxing and you want to see everything in detail, check the link in the description below or the eye in the corner of this video. And as you have seen, perhaps, the game has some really cool, big, chunky miniatures, and they all came pre-shaded like this, so they already have all of that detail popping. You can definitely make out all the detail on their armor and all the fur on the coats and everything. It just looks amazing. This really stands out on your table, so that already is an eye catcher. I like the dice. They're nice and chunky, normal size dice with embossed faces, so they're not just printed on, they're actually in the dice, so that's really cool as well. There's the 6 white ones and the 1 black one for those spots where you get to roll to see what you get for extra bonuses, or perhaps that extra threat of losing 2 hit points. You get these victory tokens, which are just small round circles, but the cardboard is nice and thick, so that's fine. The board itself is really good, nicely clearly printed. It's pretty small because it's a small arena, but that doesn't take up too much space on your table either, yet it still has squares big enough for all these miniatures to easily fit on, so that works. You get the deck of cards per character. I've sleeved them. There's not that many, so they're easy and cheap to sleeve, of course. And of course, you don't need to do that, but I like doing that. So you just get a handful of cards, which are of a very good quality. They are very, very smooth, though. There's not a linen finish on them. They are smooth, so they do reflect a little, which is why I like the sleeves as well. Still reflects, of course, but yeah, for me, that is just handy with shuffling. And then there's just a small rule book, which is also very concise and very clear. There's not a whole lot of rules. You get these character boards, which are also nice. They are of decent thickness and clearly printed. Everything has a spot. You've got your health track. You got clearly the spots for all the dice. It's almost intuitive what you need to do here. You don't really need to know everything by heart, because it kind of shows you already how it works and the rewards you get. You just need to know what the icons mean, and then you're ready to go. You get these wooden cubes that you can put on your health track. Now, these aren't like dual layered, so you can put your cube inside. You just have to put them on top and they slide. So there is that. So be careful that you don't bump this off, but it's just the one track, so that's not that big of a deal. But dual layered would have been just that little bit more luxurious. But otherwise, everything is really good. Nice, and the box itself is relatively compact. It's not much bigger than it needs to be given the size of the miniatures mostly, but I do feel that I will be able to put the expansions in the core box if I make my own insert and save some room for these two boxes. As far as I know, these are the only two expansions for the game, so that should be doable to get that all in one box. The artwork is pretty good. It's mostly just on the cover of the box, really, the characters, and on these boards, of course, you've got the character art here as well. And of course, the art on the board, which is just the arena. And that's pretty much it. Otherwise, you do have some art on the cards, but they're mostly just symbolic. I guess they're all symbols and runes and stuff like that, but it is really nicely done. So I do like the artwork, and I also like the theme a lot. I like the Viking mythology and, you know, the Norse gods and stuff like that. Really like that. And yes, all of these characters, of course, are those mythological god figures. So that's really, really cool. And I also like the sheer size of them. The intimidating miniature size kind of fits that theme as well. And also all the characters have their own special abilities that fit within the theme. Thor has, of course, Mjolnir that he can call down, and he can call down the lightning. So he puts this token on a tile, and that's where the lightning strikes, and you can damage another character that way. And in that way, all of them have their own abilities that will fit with that specific god, if you know a little bit about Norse mythology. The gameplay is quick, is fun, it's pretty fast. I've played several two-player games mostly, and those are over relatively quickly. You can play that in about 20 minutes because you only need to get the 10 victory points or just knock an opponent out by taking all of their hit points away. Of course, in a 3 or a 4-player game, it's going to take a little bit longer. But half an hour, I would say maximum, once you know the rules. It's over pretty quickly because it's really in your face. It's a small, close combat arena where you're constantly positioning yourself and you're trying to stay away from the melee characters, and you're trying to get in range of characters that you can damage. So there's a whole lot of strategic positioning going on. And of course, some of the characters have these tiles that they can put on the board that do damage as well. And you don't want to be stuck on that tile, of course, so you want to move away. There's the portals you can use to move from one end to another, and there's these purple portals that, you know, again, let you roll the black die and get some extra bonuses. There's just a whole lot you can do, and I really like the Yahtzee element. It reminds me of King of Tokyo, where you just roll the dice, keep what you want to have, and then check your character board, which special abilities am I going for? And you can try and go for that and see if you can roll better. And if you don't, you can always use the faces on the dice themselves as well, so they're not always completely lost. There's only one symbol, that's this one, basically the starburst, or it has a name, I forgot. But that one is only used on the board, so if you're stuck with that, those will be useless, but all the other ones are useful. You can just do one melee damage. You can have 2 of these half victory points, and that would make 1 whole victory point. You can just collect a victory point that way. You have an extra movement. You've got half a card, so if you have 2 of those, you can draw a card and then add it to your hand at the end of your turn. And then there's, of course, the heart, which will give you a hit point back if you've lost any. So that's very intuitive. And I really like the Yahtzee element, that you can try and go for a certain combination for an ability. Or you can just, whatever remains of dice, you can just use those faces straight up like that. I also really enjoy the fact that you can use your cards 2 ways. You can either use them for their direct effect that's printed on the card, just the text on the card does what it says, and then it's gone, you discard the card. Or you slide it underneath your character board, and then it adds to your bonuses. So you get extra bonuses for activating one of those abilities. And that's really cool as well. And you can do that, you know, every turn if you get more cards and just keep on building up. Or you can just keep a card and for that right moment to play it. And I really like that aspect of the gameplay as well. Now, in a 2-player game, it's pretty straightforward. You're always going for each other, so it's going to be over pretty quickly, and you want to replay again and again for a rematch, and you can try different characters, of course, or the expansions. In a 3 or 4-player game, it's still a quick game, and there is player elimination, but because the game is so quick, you won't be out of the game that long. So it's not that big a deal in this case. Usually, I don't really like being eliminated. But in this case, it's over so quickly that it's not that big of a deal. You could technically gang up on one player if you're saying, so, okay, maybe Surtur here with the fire is the biggest threat. So all the other players are going to take him out first, and then that player is out. And then, of course, they're going to have to go after each other. That could happen. But even so, even then, it's still, you know, quick enough that you won't be bothered that much. I mean, technically, if you were the last player in order and all the other players that played before you came after you, you could lose a lot of health before you even got to play. But it would take a lot of luck from the other players to actually take you out. I mean, theoretically, I guess it could happen, but I think the odds are pretty slim on that ever happening. But it could. So that's the only thing there that could happen where I say, well, that wouldn't be nice, you know, if you're the 4th player and you're already out before you even had a chance. But I don't see that happening very much. The replayability is also pretty good. Like I said, you can try, of course, any of these 6 characters and play against other characters. It plays well with 2, 3, or 4 players. It's over pretty quickly, so you kind of want a rematch right afterwards. We usually play like 2 or 3 games in a row of this, and still all very much enjoyed it. And finally, the game does have some language dependency, which is pretty much only the card. So every card has that special ability. That, of course, is printed in English. So the game is language dependent, but they're not very difficult. So if you have a basic grasp of the English language, you'll be able to play this. All the rest is basically icons. So it's a bit of a shame that they couldn't manage to make everything with icons, all the cards with icons, but I guess that was too hard to explain with icons, I guess, because every card, of course, is different. So there is that to take into account when you want to get a copy of this game. In the end, I really like this game. It's quick, it's accessible. It plays ages 10 and up. I would say even 8 and up would probably work for this, because it's just basically Yahtzee. You're rolling dice just like in King of Tokyo, and you're keeping your best results. You're trying to push your luck, see what happens, which skills you can use, and you can even use the dice, and I love that so much. And it also reminds me a bit of Super Fantasy Brawl, where you're also playing big chunky miniatures in a relatively small arena with a hand of cards. The mechanisms are, of course, different here because you need to unlock a card first, and then you get it at the end of your turn, so you can only use it on your next turn. But that's also a fun mechanism here. So if you're looking for a game, an arena battler that is similar to Super Fantasy Brawl, perhaps a bit more streamlined, a bit lighter, easier to get to the table, then that is definitely a game I can recommend. If you're looking for something a bit more meaty, a bit more involved, a bit more challenging, then this is probably not what you're looking for. Then I would suggest a game like Arena the Contest, for example, that has a lot more rules, a huge arena, and yeah, so there's a lot more going on there. This is just very quick and easy, and that does make it very easy to get to the table as well with just about any public, whether they're starting board gamers or experienced board gamers. So in that regard, I really enjoy this game as well. So that's it, my review of Battle of Gods by Mood Publishing, and I'd like to thank Mood Publishing for donating a copy for me to review. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and please also check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below or the icon at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.